Call the meeting to order. I thought somebody said something. The approval of the minutes of the meeting of August the 17th, 2022 meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting for August 17th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, before we begin, I just wanted to note that we have 6 Planning Commission members, right? 2 of them are alternates, Mr. Boehm and Mr. Dastra. So this evening, one of them will be voting. Is that Mr. Boehm? Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure that was clear in the record. All right, thank you.
Okay. Subdivision and land development. A planning commission waiver of preliminary plan fulfilling requirements for the 337 and 41 Belmont Street, Pelham B. Pelham LLC intends to build a 600 square 2-bedroom, 1.5 bedroom cottage on the existing vacant R3 zone lot 37 Belmont Street, Lancaster, PA 17603, and an identical cottage on the existing vacant R3 zone lot 41 Belmont Street, Lancaster, PA 17603. The developer requests a waiver of the following. 1, a formal process to allow him to file minor plans with Planning Bureau. No planning commission's approval is required. 2, installing curb and sidewalk along 37 and 41 Belmont Street due to the wooded nature of the area.
Mr. Chairman, if I may have some brief opening comments, and then I think we can invite the developer to the podium to add to that. I just wanted to note that the Planning Commission is recommending approval of these requests. We do have a couple of conditions that we'd like to go over, but perhaps we can wait to detail those until after we have a presentation. With that, you mind proceeding to the podium and describing the project for us? Do you mind? Yeah.
I pushed the on button.
There you go.
I did it. Know some of you, for those who don't know who I am, my name is Joe Mugavero, and just to review, planning to build 2 identical 600 square foot vacation cottages on the Conestoga River in Sunnyside. And I'm requesting a waiver of preliminary and final plan requirements in hopes that we can get the project processed as a minor plan. We are also requesting modification waivers for sidewalk and curb installations. This is my first time doing a land development project. So it's been a quite educational process so far, to say the least. And for the better part of the year, we've been working with Douglas and his team, the planning team, on the project, and since retained a ELA to finalize the plan and get it submitted. I think we all know the project pretty well at this point. But in preparation for today, I wanted to reflect on the intent of the land development process. I feel like little background on me, I'm not a developer by day. I sell for Two Dudes Painting Company. So projects like 202 North Queen and 210 College Ave, our project I'm bidding on. Those projects are huge. They're amazing. They're super complicated and way over my head. And it gives me a huge appreciation for what you guys do and the whole land development process. But it also gives me a really big appreciation for how valuable it is to have smart human beings that are able to get in a room and kind of be free and able to make judgment calls and waivers when necessary. So this is why we're here. We can talk in depth about the project, but yes, thanks for your consideration. Any questions?
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate your words. Could you just tell us a little bit more, just in general, about the concept and kind of, you don't have to get into a ton of detail, but maybe just the site plan that we're looking at and some of the key features. Since you are asking for this to be processed as a minor plan, this would be the only time the Planning Commission gets to see it. So I think it's important they understand the scope of the plan. And for the Planning Commission's benefit, if that approval is granted, then this would basically be processed at the staff level, and approval would be signed off by myself and other city staff. That's typically reserved for smaller scale projects, at which I think this is fitting. But yeah, it'd be helpful to have just a little bit more info.
Yeah, sure. So this site is pretty complex. It's not complicated to build on, but it's a regular lot, but only about 20% is buildable. And so we designed these buildings to be on pilings to not disturb a whole lot of earth. They're really set as far kind of back as possible from the river to stay away from floodplain and that sort of thing. And they're really neat. They are small. They're 600 square foot, and they're really neat buildings. Even I think the stormwater runoff on the buildings for buildings this size is like 624 square feet of roof area. We're doing some unique things. Cheryl can talk more about that. But yeah, we're doing everything we can to maintain the raw kind of beauty of the site, and yet kind of be it's probably the first thing that's ever been built in Sunnyside since, I don't know, probably the 40s. So it's just really unique to be able to have the opportunity to do this and to do something really, really beautiful down there.
Thank you.
Good evening, Cheryl with ELA Group. The two different lots are actually very small as well. Lot 37 Belmont is 0.18 of an acre, so just over 7,000 some square feet. And lot 41 for Belmont is like 0.1 acre, so again, just over 4,000 some square feet. Much of it is all sloping with some steeper slopes, which we're kind of taking advantage of that where the buildings are placed. The two different colors on the building, the darker brownish color is the actual footprint inside at the lower level, and then the roof projects over top of a deck kind of observation area and whatnot. We've been working already pretty hand in hand with Kate Austin and with Angela on our stormwater. And we've kind of come to some agreement on the way we expect to move it forward, and this plan depicts that. The lighter green, kind of lime green trees are existing trees. There are 4 street trees shown up along the lower left on the property or Belmont. And then the other green trees sprinkled along at the right-hand side or along the river side, still at the top of the bank, but the little area down there are all, will be native trees that are selected. Those all count towards stormwater credits, as do what pops up as blue, but we're looking at those as eastern cedars, and those are also downslope of, the impervious that we're putting in for the small area of the cottages themselves. And then there's an old foundation, and we've been working with Angela on that. The interior part, so that's where there's the white kind of rectangle shape at the top, and then there's a green line that surrounds that. The discussion was to remove that. That's actually in floodplain, so that takes that out of the floodplain as an obstruction. But that also then would be stabilized in there for just that strip, the strip of ground where that would come out with some amended soils and some seeding. The areas just down from where the upper deck areas are on the cottages is looked at a native shrub that we work with Kate on for fragrant sumac. It's a slope stabilizer. We don't intend to be as far as unstabilizing those slopes. They would remain as they are, but it will just help to enhance that area. And those would actually be well below where the actual living space would be on the elevated decks up above. We have some walkways that are linking the units together. They would remain on separate lots, so we will work through an access easement as part of this. So that's the kind of, it's a mesh. We're looking at like a metal powder-coated mesh. It's completely permeable to the land below it. And so we've accounted for that as well as part of the project to really minimize any effect that we have on the land below, how we're designing to get these cottages in. Any questions?
Any questions from the commission?
Yeah, I got a question. Might lead us down a path, be ready. So you said vacation cottage. Are you saying that this is going to be like a rental home then? Or are you saying like the style is just a vacation cottage type style? And these will be for sale?
No, we plan to keep them. We have zoning variances for parking, but also for short-term rentals for these two properties.
Okay, so the intention is very much like that Airbnb type market.
Yeah, we'll use them obviously privately as well, but for the
Right.
most part, yes.
Okay, and then how much vegetation is going to be removed from the site?
Very little.
Great.
Outside of planting the huge amount of trees at the bottom of the river, it's
Which
kind
I'm glad to see. Thank
it's
you.
kind of neat. Yeah, it's a riparian kind of concept, which is what we need a lot of around here. All the work is going to be up high on the buildable portion where the buildings are, and just because of the piling foundation type, we're just doing everything we can to eliminate a lot of earth disturbance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit more about the curb and sidewalk area and why you're proposing to not do that? I'm not sure I followed if you mentioned that
Yeah,
earlier.
absolutely. Yeah, it'd probably be good to see what Sunnyside looks like. So Sunnyside is pretty raw. I'm sure if you've been down there or not. It's a really beautiful and magical place, but it certainly is, from a development standpoint, probably the most offline the city has in the city limits. And so there really, at this point, there aren't any sidewalks, there aren't any curbs, there's really no off-street parking. So everything that's here is going to be kind of left as is for the most part. We're going to try to preserve, again, just try to preserve what it is currently, and do the best we have with what we have. There's a lot of specifics on why, of course. I mean, the streets are very narrow. We can get into like actual dimensions, but it really doesn't make any sense. Just not applicable, I guess, to the project.
It's pretty clear with the picture that we're looking at, so.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. It's been years since I've been down there and I couldn't remember, so I wasn't sure if there was existing sidewalks, and that's why we're not connecting to them, because walkability is important. So, sounds like a great project. I have seen your craftsmanship before. I hope that your hands will be working on these. I think it will definitely enhance that area, and I think it will add a great economic value to the city. So from a short-term rental perspective, just ensure you follow all the, all of the fund guidelines,
We certainly will.
rules and requirements there. But it sounds like a great project, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, I got a question for you.
Please.
So I don't know, like I understand they're seeking a waiver for the sidewalk requirements, which I'm not opposed to not putting in typical sidewalks here, but is it common for the city to ask for maybe like a fee in lieu of, so that if we do a whole sidewalk project in that neighborhood, we have funds available to do it in the future?
The city has not implemented a program like that in the past. We always try our best to require sidewalks where we can. The challenging part about this site is really the grade, the drop off at the edge of the road, and the guardrail that's there, really as a safety requirement. So we're unable to extend the sidewalk to the other side of the road, and the road at this point can't feasibly be expanded. Going forward, if there is more development out here, the city could, choose to enlarge the right-of-way, but I don't think that's in our near future at all. So yeah, the short answer is we have not done that in the past before, and in this case, the developer is essentially committing to installing a private sidewalk system that would serve both parcels. So one of the parcels would not be accessible from the public right-of-way because of that guardrail. So that cottage would be accessed via the adjoining parcel. And through our land development review, we'll get into the details of an easement agreement that would need to be in perpetuity. So it's basically a private sidewalk for that particular house. Yeah.
No, and I appreciate that. I'm glad you did that. And now that you're mentioning the guardrail and showing the visual, it makes a lot more sense. So thank you.
Sure. And I'll also just mention the conditions so the applicant can have a chance to respond to those. The three that we'd like to propose is to submit a minor plan in accordance with all applicable sections of the land development ordinance. I think that's in keeping with your request. Comply with the city staff comments that we provide on the minor plan, and to provide adequate access and infrastructure for the easements in perpetuity.
Yeah, we that.
Sorry, so could you say that one more time?
We have no problem with that, and it's already kind of built in and planned.
Great. So those would be the conditions staff would recommend. If the Planning Commission would like to approve that, it includes those three conditions as stated.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Can I make a quick comment before we do the vote? I think this is just kind of worded a little funny. I just want to make sure, the way this reads here in the minutes, it's like we're doing a waiver of the minor plan. I just want to make sure I understand what exactly we're waiving in that first section, because it doesn't really specify exactly what we are waiving in lieu of the minor. I'm assuming we're waiving something in lieu of doing a minor plan instead. I'm just not sure what we're waiving.
Yeah, so thank you for the clarification. Really, this is a modification of the ordinance that's allowing this to be processed as a minor plan. So this project technically meets the thresholds of a final plan. So you'd be waiving him the requirement of submitting a final plan and allowing him to submit as a minor plan. And what the applicant wins in that is that they have much smaller fee associated with the review. City staff has 45 days as opposed to 90 days to review the plan, and it doesn't come back to Planning Commission for a formal review. So city staff would handle the approval basically on the Planning Commission's behalf and in accordance with the subdivision and land development ordinance. Should there be any changes and modifications that would come up, then Mr. Mogavero would have to return to see you again. But I think the hope here is that that we can handle it at a staff level. And then the second one is waiving him of the requirement to install curb and sidewalk along those two parcels.
Can I just be clear then that the motion was written in that way? I mean, I'm just making sure we're doing it correctly, that's all. So nobody gets confused down the line.
Sure. Is there agreement that the motion on the table
Was as you just described.
yes, as I just described, and also for additional clarification, it
Do I
includes
need to re-motion?
the conditions that I stated earlier too.
No, I don't think so. I just think, I was just trying to clarify to make sure.
I appreciate that, Mr. Bain. If
So the
all is in order, then
So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Thank you very much.
B, Planning Commission waiver of preliminary plan, following requirements for 40 Longfellow Drive, CNF Incorporate. Would like to request for a waiver of preliminary plans for the proposed 4-unit apartment building with a footprint of only 3,280 square feet at 40 Longfellow Drive. The project proposes no new roads, sewers, or water mains, no PennDOT approval required under 1 acre of disturbance, and no variance required by the zoning office.
Mr. Chairman, I'll provide just some brief comments here, and then if the developer is in the room, then they can come to the podium and explain more. So this is a fairly small-scale project compared to many of the projects that we see. As you know, we generally reserve the preliminary plan approval for projects that are of substantial size. Oftentimes, the other plans are waived of the preliminary plan requirement. In this case, no sketch plan was submitted to city staff ahead of time, and which is fine, but that is one of the requirements of having an administrative waiver of preliminary plan. And in this case, they exceed one of the waiver of preliminary plan filing requirements, which is that they must submit a sewer planning module for the additional sewer capacity. City staff is supportive of the waiver for preliminary plan requirement in this case, given that's the only condition that they exceed. And with that, I'm happy to invite the developer to the podium if they'd like to explain more about the project. Is the developer in the room? No. Okay, the developer's not in the room. So with that said, I think that the agenda probably adequately describes the project. This is the same developer that did the 1923 and 15, 19, and 23 Tennyson Drive. So this is on the south side of Tennyson Drive. Longfellow Drive is out in that development. Yes, and you can see that there's some undeveloped parcels out there. So right at the intersection of Longfellow and Browning Road, there's some undeveloped land there along the same stretch of woods that they're looking to develop. So in this case, they're proposing a 4-unit apartment building, essentially designed as townhouses, 4 of them all in a row. So I think that's really all the information I have at this point. We're reviewing the land development plan, but they need this approval to proceed with final plan development, and then they would come back to you for approval.
So we're just waiving a preliminary plan and they'll be here for a final plan?
That's correct.
Okay.
Douglas, can you speak to the sewer capacity? Because earlier you had mentioned that you needed a sewer module work in the additional sewer capacity that will be needed for the project. But then I think I know what I'm saying now that I'm saying this out loud, actually. In the notes, it says that no new sewers will be added. Can you just clarify that for me?
Sure, and give me one moment. Let me just pull up the letter too. So the sewer planning module is not something the Planning Commission generally gets involved in, but it is a part of our thresholds for preliminary plan approval. Really, what a sewer planning module is an amendment to our official sewer plan as a city. So we have an official sewer plan that basically says, you know, how much capacity we allot to each of the parcels throughout the city. And for parcels like this that have been left undeveloped, there's a small amount of sewer capacity that's allocated for future development. So, and because they're they're requesting 4 units here, maybe if they'd come in with 1 unit, they might not have reached that threshold for sewer capacity. But because there are 4, the state Department of Environmental Protection requires that they go through a process demonstrating where they're going to discharge their sewer and then how the city plans to deal with that sewer flow. This is generally more important when we're dealing with on-lot sewer systems. In this case, we're connected to a public sewer system. For some years, we had these waived by the DEP, and we did not need to do these at all. That has changed because we're now under a consent decree by the EPA to require that we eliminate our combined sewer overflows. If you weren't aware, we have a combined sewer and stormwater system, and we overflow into the Conestoga River raw sewage, and that makes it into the Chesapeake Bay. And the Chesapeake Bay is a protected body of water, and so we're subject to some strenuous regulations from the EPA because of that whole situation. And the DEP changed their interpretation of their sewer laws about 3 years ago and said that they would no longer provide us waivers of sewer planning modules because we were not in conformance with the Clean Water Act for the state of Pennsylvania. So as a roundabout way, but it's, I think, you know, the proper way to explain it. So ever since then, developers have needed to demonstrate that they're requesting sewer capacity, and we're demonstrating how we're going to accommodate that new sewer flow. We don't have any concerns about capacity in this situation, and the development meets our comprehensive plan and the ways that we would imagine this part of the city developing going forward. So we look at sewer planning modules both from a land use perspective and a technical, like, sewer capacity perspective. So in this case, we've recommended to council, or we will recommend to council, an approval of the sewer module. So I don't see that being a barrier to this project.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, Commission?
Yeah, wait, just more for curiosity. So I see they're in a C2 zone, are they?
Give us 1 minute.
Okay. Just, so is this considered a multifamily dwelling then? Like a new construction multifamily dwelling? I just want to clarify because you had mentioned like townhome earlier.
Yeah, so I would need to defer to our zoning officer on that. Multifamily is permitted by right in this district.
Yeah.
So I believe that's how we were looking at it because this is all functioning as one building and on one lot.
Okay. So in the end of the project, they'd have to remain, like they wouldn't be sectioned off, like it would have to be one unit. Well, 4 units, but like one building, I mean.
The way they're currently proposing it, yes. I suppose it's possible they could condominiumize the parcel, but
Okay.
it would essentially function as one single parcel.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to approve the waiver of the preliminary plan for 40 Longfellow Drive?
Any comments from the public? No comments from the public? Ms. Sue, you can make your motion?
May I please make a motion to approve the waiver of the preliminary plan filing requirements for 40 Longfellow Drive?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. Okay, C, Planning Commission waiver of formal process of 560 Water Street, Becknick Builders LLC, agent and contractor for Creative Packaging Solutions, proposes to construct a commercial building, additional 266 square feet for warehouse storage space on an existing building. This proposed addition was incorporated in the original plan development stormwater management plan created and approved by the city of Lancaster back in April of 2016.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of brief comments here, and then I think the developer is in the room for this one. This expansion was included on a previous land development plan, and as I understand it, many of the requirements already satisfied on the site, anticipating this expansion. The Creative Packaging Solutions business was started, or at least set up shop here in what was known as the Keystone Opportunity Zone. This is an area of the city that was an old blighted industrial property and was cleaned up and re-subdivided, and South Water Street extended and utilities extended to try to facilitate development. And I would just like to say that the city's very glad that the Creative Packaging Solutions Company is there and decided to develop in the KOZ and take advantage of those tax benefits, and that it's clearly continuing to succeed in that location. So I welcome the developer up to the podium to tell us a little bit more about their plan.
Good evening, everybody. We appreciate your time. My name is Tony Luongo, and I'm the pre-construction coordinator for Brecknock Builders LLC. My boss, Mr. Jonathan Martin, is handing out packets of the original approved plan back in April of 2016, and also a packet of the proposed addition that we want to install on the Creative Packaging existing building. Also here tonight is Mr. Tom Lipinski with Creative Packaging. I want to thank Douglas for the guidance here. I did send in a narrative letter to your office, and I guess I'll just read from that, but basically, Mr. Smith had covered it pretty accurately. The plan was created back in 2016, approved. I believe there's a 5-year window of opportunity to break ground and get the new addition in place.
Okay.
Unfortunately, due to economic conditions, COVID-19, various other things, Mr. Wapinski wasn't in a position to break ground and add this, put this addition on. We're talking about additional warehouse space, and we don't see any complications with that since it was already included on the original land development plan. They've compensated, well, the plan actually accounts for the stormwater management of that addition as well. But I will read from the narrative. I'm not sure if you have it or not, but I'll just go through it here briefly. Brecknock Builders LLC is the agent and contractor for creative packaging and proposes to construct commercial building addition totaling 2,660 square feet for warehouse storage space on the existing building. This proposed addition was incorporated on the land development plan back in April 2016. Although this project exceeds the ordinance threshold of 400 square foot maximum for building additions, it meets the intent of the no impact land development provision as per the City of Lancaster saldo. Because this improvement will not meet thresholds for traffic impact study or large stormwater management site plan, site plan will not cause an increase in water consumption or sewage discharge exceeding 350 gallons per day, and will not require the installation of new water or sewer laterals or a new access drive. We request a waiver of the land development plan filing requirements of section 265-4 of the saldo. I hope that answers most of your questions, but I'll be happy to try and answer any if you do have any additional questions. And like I said, we do have the 2 packets there. You're welcome to breeze through those. One is obviously the approved plan from back in 2016, and then the other packet is our Brecknock Builders construction plans and layout for the addition. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
So the existing stormwater facilities on the site are already encompass or incorporate, from the metric standpoint, this new building addition?
I believe they were, yes. It was beneficial that Mr. Wapinski thought ahead back in the day for that proposed expansion in the future. As we all know, stormwater facilities are costly. Development is costly. And what it cost 6-7 years ago is not the same as what it costs today.
I definitely agree. Stormwater infrastructure is costly. How many, like I saw on one of these pages that existing trees and brush to be removed. Do you have any idea, like how much vegetation, like maybe the size of the trees being removed, for example?
I don't, but there is none, Mr. Wapinski says.
No, okay, so no trees and brush need to be removed, it's just grass? Okay, because I was just gonna say, like, the only concern I would have is replacing anything that was cut down, just because root systems help with the stormwater.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I'll just add that city staff is recommending approval of this request as well.
Any public comment? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the request for a waiver.
I'll second that motion.
We have approval And a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. May I just make one recommendation or clarification? The waiver that's being requested would be substantially in accordance with the testimony presented here and in accordance with the previous land development plan. I just want to be sure that what we're approving isn't sort of just a blanket 2,660 additional building footprint anywhere on the property, but just want to clarify that it is in the place that it is and in accordance with the previously approved plan. If that could be considered just as a stipulation in the approval, I'd appreciate it.
We need to have another motion or not?
I think if the two motioners can just acknowledge that that is included, I think that should suffice.
Acknowledged.
Acknowledged.
So, ready for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Sure, thank you.
Congratulations and best of luck with your continued success.
Okay, D. Time extension for 221, 227 North Prince Street, final land development.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll provide just some brief comments on this again and then invite the developers up to the podium. So 221, 227 is a project that went through land development approvals. I think it was 2020 that it was approved. And this is for the redevelopment of two different buildings, two buildings that have a history with tobacco use in the city, tobacco storage. And the plan is has been kept current through a series of extensions made by the Commission. The plan is still in a status of conditional approval. The developer has not met all of the conditions that this body imposed on them in 2020. And typically, a developer has 1 year to meet conditions of approval and record a plan. And through the extensions provided here, it's made it to this point. Technically, the plan actually expired, I think, was it last week, Mandeli? Yes. Thank you. The Commission has the opportunity, upon its first meeting that follows that expiration, to extend that timeline if you so choose for the developer to continue to work towards conditions of approval being satisfied and having the land development plan recorded. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. I may have some additional comments later, but I think that where we left this last time with the Commission is that we were eager for more detail about why the project hadn't yet been accomplished, what was holding it up, and what proactive steps you were taking to satisfy conditions of approval and get the property into a new use and revitalized. So with that, please.
Yes, this is Benjamin Myers. Man, I didn't want to be here in front of you guys again. Since we started in concept and architectural and engineering and submitted initially for conditional approval, I know that I have been up here before multiple times, and it seems like every time that I get up to here, there is a condition that, and I don't mean land development plan condition, a circumstance like had a lender in place and COVID happened and they got pulled. We stalled for a while and then we got some traction again. We got another lender in place and interest rate starts to go up, construction pricing. We've just been battling. The long and the short of it is we've been overcoming a hurdle to hit a next hurdle. And the largest hurdle that we see is our personal ability to add additional capital to the project. Banks, in a time of COVID or in a time of risk, perceived risk or realized risk, ask for more money down. They want to reduce the loan to cost. So we're not independently wealthy guys. We're out there. We're trying to overcome as many hurdles as we can. And we have now come to the place that we are not able to cross the finish line without additional support from our team members. And so the hurdle that we have most recently negotiated and come to a conclusion is that we need to take a smaller role, equitable role in the project in order to help this project move forward. And so that's really the new thing that has taken place since the last time we discussed, is sort of a restructuring and having some other team members that were a part of the team before, but smaller members, to take more of a larger participatory role to help us get across the main threshold or main hurdle, and that's financially. So we feel really good about our current position, being able to secure debt for the construction and the rehabilitation of these two projects. And we are more than happy to be a more minor person to be able to see this project move forward. But we can't, we'll need to step back and go through the process and the plan again if the committee does not allow for an additional extension. Understandably, may not want to extend again, and we're willing to accept whatever the committee decides. My objective is to be transparent with you, and to, if you do grant us this capability, it will help us bring in the other folks on this team that are able to have maybe a little bit more staying power or a little bit better capacity from a lending standpoint. So that's a super high level, very condensed version, but I am happy to dialogue with you and answer any questions you may have. We have tried to chip away at some of the conditions, but truthfully, the letter of credit, the financial commitment that we usually tie to the bank, is the thing that we wouldn't have been able to meet conditionally anyway. And so, like, even though we've been pushing the ball down with either the easement back and forth between properties, which we have a new one drafted, but we were able to uncover an old one that we had that we thought might actually suit for the connection between these two parcels. Anyway, we have been trying to move the ball down the pike, but the financial hurdle is the hurdle for us that we have not been able to overcome until we believe now is a different circumstance. But anyway, so I'm happy to answer any questions and dialogue with you if you have it. If you want to know more about the project, I'm happy to tell you. You may already have some of the details, but anyway.
So, because if I remember right, at the last meeting, I don't think you were present. I think it was just
Yes.
Brian.
Yep. Correct.
You know, it seemed like we were pretty strong against not giving an extension for this again. Is that like, and I'm not, I understand financing is a huge concern and like the hurdle to get over. There's so many other questions I have bouncing through my mind, but like, do you feel like you'll have a better opportunity to get this project to happen if you do have to go back to, I don't want to say square one necessarily, but like really just like, this is no longer something that's pressing you? Because I guess my personal concern, just knowing that you guys are doing so much, is like, I don't want to see your other projects slow down because this one project keeps beating you over the head. Yeah.
No, I appreciate my objective again is to be transparent, and that's the best way for dialogue anyway. The truth of the matter is the extension does have merit or impact as far as our capability to move the project forward, and that's mainly because of time. So we do have current pricing right now that we can move forward with. with construction, on the construction side, we do have financial capability within the team for a construction loan for the project to move that forward. So if we don't get an extension, effectively, it does add a variable of uncertainty with what our price is going to be like in 6 months, in 8 months, whenever that plan then gets reapproved. So it does have consideration, for us at least.
So I will ask, mainly because one of these gentlemen is in the room. Thank you for being here, Mr. Lesher. So you're saying that right now you have these certainties, like the construction loan, the costs, and really this time extension will give you what you need in order to start the project.
So
The question I want to ask is not necessarily just because of Mr. Lesher back there, and feel free to comment if you'd like, but is this collective support now giving you what you need, and you simply just need this procedural step and you can start?
yeah, it's an excellent question, and the truth of the matter is I don't know. And I don't mean I don't know, meaning I understand the components. I understand we have costs. I understand we have a bank that is willing to lend. The truth of the matter is, until you sign contracts, there is a variable there. And I mean, right now, as you're looking at a lot of projects, we're looking at projects that we're shelving right now or putting on pause because of the financial uncertainty as it relates to construction, subcontractor pricing, material delays, getting transformers from PPL being more than a year out. I mean, there's a whole lot of things like that. The thing that I'll say is, without an extension, let me preface this by saying the last time we asked for an extension, we had a bank with a term sheet ready to lend. So what happened was the interest rate started to increase. The Fed dropped 25 basis points, or increased by 25 basis points, and then there's effectively it caused some pause on the lender, and we, the guarantors, if you will, Brian, Preston, myself, are not. We don't have the same. We don't come from the same background or have the same liquidity capabilities as other folks, and so we didn't have that strength then. That's not necessarily the case with the new structure that would be in place. So I am much more confident that the parameters in place are able to move forward with an extension. But I would be lying if I said that it is 100% confident. All I need is this, and we're good. We're golden. There's still things that need to take place, but we're in a much stronger position with the support of the other folks on the team.
So, because I want to let my other commissioners ask questions if they want.
Sure.
And also, I want to see these Red Rose Transit Authority potential part like that. Like that's something that you guys have put a concept out there, and I think it really sparks a whole new, potentially a whole new way of developing in Lancaster, and it's fascinating to me to see that project potentially come forward. How much time do you think you will need extended for this? Because at the last meeting, we did seem pretty resolved. I'm an alternate tonight, so I can't make any motions or votes one way or the other. But if the commission feels comfortable granting a time extension, how much time do you need before it's start time to get those Red Rose?
Yeah. So the truth of the matter is, I want, in all things, I try to be reasonable and not just throw something out there. So, I mean, I put in there to the end of 2022 was my. Do I believe that it can take place? We can meet the conditions by that point. I believe in the current current position that is achievable.
If you don't get that, if you can't get to the finish line by the end of 22 or
we're
2022,
looking at a completely different project, essentially.
That's what I like to hear. Okay, thank you.
So let me make it clear, you're saying by the end of this year,
Correct.
in terms of the
I mean,
extension?
This is what I believe to be a reasonable request by the end of the year. If I'm truthful, would I ask for more time? Absolutely, if you'd give it to me. But you guys have been incredibly generous to this point, and I'm trying to be respectful of the committee. So that's a candid but honest answer.
Can I ask, other than the letter of credit condition,
Yes,
is that the one condition that we were talking about? Have the other conditions been met?
not all of them, no.
What are they?
So I don't believe the easement between both properties has been accepted, at least by Douglas or the team. I don't know that we've seen comments back on the easement that we sent over. That was a while ago. But the financial consideration, there was some, I would need to look back at the list to be able to explain line item by line item. You probably have it, Douglas.
I have it in front of me. So they're different for each property, 221 and 227. Starting with 221, the stormwater design has to be amended to the satisfaction of the Stormwater Bureau. We may have concluded that one, but there may be loose threads there too. It's been too long for me to recall that offhand. Assigned cross easement is depicted for both of the properties for stormwater management. We have not received that, and it has not been recorded yet, that easement. Assigned operations maintenance agreement needs to be provided, at which we have not yet received.
Hey, Douglas, quick question
Yes.
for you. The easement that we sent over, the existing easement that we sent over, which would have been recorded a long time ago, we didn't hear back as to whether or not that was acceptable or not. So
Yeah,
Not-
so I believe that is the access easement that goes through the properties
Okay.
for pedestrian benefit. I could be wrong about that, but
not construction or those pieces.
correct.
We do have something drafted. We were waiting for a response before we
Okay.
sent that over, but
I can certainly
sorry to
follow-
cut you off. I
No,
didn't
that's
mean
all
to do
right. I appreciate you noting that if we missed something. I don't want to misrepresent the current status of the project. So we will certainly follow up on what that easement was that was submitted previously. There also is a public tree easement that needs to be recorded. I don't believe that has been taken care of yet.
I don't believe so.
A revised cost opinion, which is mentioned in the letter, but I don't believe we've received yet to date. Unless you sent it to maybe one of us and we haven't had a chance to.
I remember seeing an email from Light Heigl, but I would need to check back and see, and maybe that was in reference to 38 versus 221 or 227. So I would need to verify that, but
Okay. Let's see. There are some minor plan notes that have to be taken care of. There's also a sidewalk easement on the Market Street side of the project that needs to be recorded. I think the 20-foot wide access easement that we mentioned has been recorded. Excuse me. And then a final developer's agreement that's signed by the developer as well. I don't believe we've received yet. For 221, 227, the conditions are similar. I think a couple of differences to note. There needs to be bumper protection installed on that lot for vehicles that are parking up against the building.
yes.
There's a tree easement on that property as well. Some of the other conditions, actually, they all stand for that parcel as well. So I'd venture to say probably the majority of the conditions haven't yet been satisfied for either project. I certainly am sympathetic to the condition, the financial conditions currently, and what you're seeking to resolve. I wish that we would have heard from you more between the last time we offered an extension, or the Planning Commission offered an extension, and today. My understanding is that the property is now going to sheriff's sale later this month. I'm curious to know what you're doing in the very near term to avoid a tax sale of the property.
Yeah, it's effectively what we're doing is we're writing a check. We're not personally writing a check, but the group is writing a check to clear it. But so effectively, this changes, the extension changes how it's paid. If it's paid through effectively the first part of like down money on a construction loan, or if it's just paid for and then put to the side and re-looking at how the project looks altogether. So it's not going to be taken out with debt likely, it's going to be taken out with just cash. So we're not intending for it to go to the sheriff's sale, but between now and then, we're getting our financing or whatever in order, our cash in order.
And what is the date of the sheriff's sale that's set right now?
I want to say, I would need to double check. I want to say it's in the teens. We're within 30 days, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know what that exact date is without looking back at my emails.
Actually, yeah, and we can look at that, but it is this month. It looks like, at least for one of the properties, it's September 28th at 10 a.m.
Correct. Sounds right.
That's listed as 221, 223, and 227 is listed on that.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you remind me of the timeline for this project, when it first came in front of us, when the original renewal came?
Douglas, do you,
Yeah.
I mean, you would, if you have that in front of you, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so this was submitted in June of 2020, and approvals were provided for this project in November of 2020. So, about 6 months later or 5 months later.
Yes.
And then so I guess November of 2021, the first extension would have been granted. And I believe that was only for about 3 months.
Correct.
And that got us to the beginning of the next year. There was another 3 month or so extension at that point, got us to, I forget, April or so,
Correct.
March or April. And then the most recent request extended it basically till the end of August, or September 1st. And so that I think that's the update timeline.
Just strikes me that if you were confident in the project, that all of these other hurdles would have been cleared, and you would have said, financing is the last step, or one of the last couple things we need. I mean, it's kind of telling to me that these other things haven't really been done yet. I mean,
So
like, let's say
I'll let you go.
you finally get the financing together in early November. You're telling me you're going to be able to clear all these other hurdles by the end of December?
Most of the items that were listed are easements and access and tree and construction and things like that. And they've actually been drafted. We actually have a rough draft from our attorney. But honestly, we were not submitting that because we were waiting to hear if the language needed to be, we had an easement in place, and what were we actually allowed to have covered in that? But we did not submit the language from our attorney, but we have a draft. We can show you emails back and forth with the attorney about that. But we have been working towards it, but we have not submitted it. I understand, just to be clear, I do understand what you're saying, though.
Mr. Myers, I think since this planning commission actually acted on the plan in 2020, the scope of this plan, in my eyes, has changed a little bit, or scope of the use, I should say, of the project. So
Okay.
when you went before the zoning hearing board and the planning commission, you had sort of pitched this as sort of missing housing option, something between a short-term rental and a year-long lease. These are boarding room units that people might be able to fill, a 3 to 6 month stint. Maybe they're moving, maybe they're just arriving here, maybe they're empty nesters or college students living across the street or going to school across the street. The zoning hearing board approved a special exception, or I think we provided a certificate of zoning compliance for a treatment or counseling center on the first floor, dealing with drug addiction and alcohol, and that same management company was now going to be managing the upper floor 29 rooming units. And I'm wondering if you can just explain what that concept is.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to fit exactly with the vision that was articulated early in the process. And I certainly do have some questions about the same management company who's managing the treatment counseling service center also managing the housing and what the relationship is between the two.
Yeah, so we've been dialoguing with, you're exactly right, with a counseling organization. Honestly, we've been looking at any tenant that would help us secure financing. So we've been in talks with, some of the team members have been in dialoguing with PCAD for student housing at the same time as we've been talking with this counseling organization. And we've been running different iterations as though we were managing it ourselves or we had an organization like Boyd Wilson Property Management, who does typical management. We've talked with, at any rate, we've gone down many different iterations, and the truth of the matter is we don't have any lease signed except for the gym that is currently in place and the Roberito place, Roberitos. But yes, we've had some back and forth with Pennsylvania College of Art and Design and Actus, which is a counseling service that supports drug and alcohol rehabilitation. Part of what they do is, as far as their counseling, is they do have a portion of their business that is sober living, and they do have interest in the rest of the building. Absolutely, that is correct. But we don't have anything signed with them at this point. Neither with PCAD or with, we don't have any, besides what is currently there, I Am Limitless. We don't have anything else signed. I don't know if that really kind of answered, but we are running down, we're running down a lot of different options to get this project moved to the next stage.
That's helpful for me. I just want to make clear, and this is outside the purview of this particular body, but I think is still important to mention. So a certificate of zoning compliance has been issued for counseling services. Combined living and counseling situation begins to constitute a supportive housing situation or maybe even a treatment facility situation. So the operation of both the counseling and the residence certainly raises a flag and would make one wonder whether this is really a treatment facility and not a permitted zoning use, or whether the two are truly kept independent. In order for that to happen, the independence of the two uses, the housing would need to be marketed in such a way that you're not limiting the housing only to those who were in recovery, but that anyone would be able to rent there.
That's correct. Just to be clear, there is absolutely no treatment being issued on site. That was a stipulation that we have been very clear with the conversations with Actus. And as far as the management of the housing piece, whether we do it or they do it, or we get a third party to do it, we're open to that as well. Honestly, it's there's a lot of different things, a lot of different services that are needed downtown. We're not in the commercial business market. We're in the housing market. That's what we do. That's what we're interested in doing, providing urban, walkable housing. And it's hard not to look at somebody that's interested and that serves a need in the community. So, but if that is an issue to, and this is maybe not the place for this conversation, but if there's an issue with the management being held by the same organization, we can look at other alternates and maybe manage it ourselves. But our intention is for it to be open to the public. So we plan on honoring what the zoning does allow by right and what we're interested in doing. And honestly, to be candid, PCAD would be a perfect tenant for this building. So whether we sign something with Actus for the commercial space, whether PCAD takes the space, whether we do a market rate, we're not going outside the bounds of what the zoning allows. We don't intend to. We're just trying to get a successful project built. These two buildings are, it's a travesty to have them look the way they do, and we really have a heart to see investment in the city, and we're going to continue down that front as much as possible. And to be honest, this has been a really difficult project for us. We're finishing up a project in Columbia that we're thrilled about. We are investing in other parts of the city, and we intend to continue to do that. But this has been the challenge that we've had with our current lender, with a technical default, not a default in lieu of payment. A technical default after COVID hit was a pretty painful experience for us to go through, and we're still navigating that and expect to be on the backside of that shortly. But this would be an extension, just to kind of bring it back to what this is, an extension to the land development plan absolutely helps us overcome this piece of the puzzle. But I understand the committee's, and we will respect the committee's perspective. We're just here dialoguing.
Any other comments from the, thank you, Mr. Myers. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I think there's a lot of red flags. You've been given a number of opportunities to right this unfortunate situation, let's say.
Correct.
This building has been sitting for a number of years in what is soon to be a continued dilapidated state. I question, as I listen to you talk, your passion for the project, and I wonder if it's a little bit too big, maybe, for what you're trying to undertake here. I recognize that there's difficulties in the development process. We, as a commission, don't try to make that any more difficult, but at some point, I think you just have to say, like, we gave you a shot, So there's, between the original timeline, the change of plans, the conditions of approval not necessarily being addressed. It's September 7th. The plan expired August 31st. There's a number of things. Maybe this should have been, I think my response for your plea for an extension would be a little bit different had you come to us in August. With a little bit, not to say that you're not compassionate about the project, but a little bit more like, oh my gosh, this is coming up and we're really trying. You don't have a number of things lined up to secure the project. Again, just red flag after red flag after red flag. So I think the concerns for me personally way outweigh the pros.
Understood. Thank you.
Ms. Seufert, I appreciate you expressing your concerns about the project. Thank you. Unfortunately, we haven't had much of an opportunity to dialogue with the developer. To your point, we didn't. I think we actually contacted them about the extension. I think we would appreciate an opportunity to maybe sit down as staff with the developer and really work through some of these issues and learn a little bit more about what's holding up the project and what the immediate next steps are. But I also, I don't want the commission to necessarily continue to kick the can down the road or feel misled about the project if it doesn't move forward. One possibility is that the extension request gets tabled, and that the city staff has an opportunity to meet with the developer to dig in a little bit more. This came fairly last minute in terms of our agenda setting as well, so there wasn't a lot of lead time for us to sort of react to this and get our bearings either. So I think that would be my suggestion if the commission is agreeable to that.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Okay, ready for the vote?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would like to put forth a motion to table this until our first meeting in October. Would that be adequate time for the city staff,
Yes, I think so.
rather than put this to vote today?
I'll second that motion.
Mm-hmm. We have a motion and a second on the floor to table this project until, you said October, our meeting in October. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Mr. Myers.
Douglas, I appreciate that. That was a thoughtful response.
Sure, no problem. I'll be in touch and look forward to chatting with you.
Okay, Housing Subcommittee.
So, Commission, I'll just provide a brief update here. I've been able to schedule 2 presentations for the Commission to get you caught up on all things comp plan related and housing study related. So on September 21st, we've scheduled a virtual presentation from our Bergman consultant to give you an overview of the latest on the comp plan and an update especially on engagement activities. And we're also actually setting a policy summit up for September 28th. That's in fact, you may have received an invite for this already, asking for your participation in that event. I'll make sure that gets sent to you again, though. So that's the 21st. The October 5th really relates to the Housing Subcommittee, and Todd Poole from Forward Planning, who did our housing study for the comp plan, will be presenting that day, and he'll be here in person from Philadelphia to provide you that information. So I hope that that's helpful. That's in response to our last meeting and some interest from commissioners about wanting more information about the housing market and how we can better guide development to meet what's needed.
Yeah, thank you. Comprehensive plan update.
So I gave you a good part of the update right there. I'll just reiterate September 28th. Please mark your calendars if you are able to come. We have sessions throughout the day. I think going as late as maybe 6:30 or 7 p.m. I'm trying to make it accessible to anyone who's able to attend. And those discussions will really be focused on policy actions. We have general policy goals that are set, but we have to add some actions to that. So I will make sure an invite's sent out again.
It's all day.
Yeah, it's pretty much all day. We have a age-friendly planning group that's meeting for breakfast, I think at 8 a.m. And then at 9 a.m. we begin our sessions, and it goes until the evening. I think there's maybe 4 or 5 sessions that are an hour and a half planned throughout the day.
She'd sent out the 29th.
Okay, yeah, it is September 28th, and you don't have to attend all of those sessions. You can just attend 1 hour and a half session if you'd like to provide your input.
Okay. Location?
That will be held at the Lancaster Chamber Building on East King Street. I forget the address offhand. I think it's like 116 East King.
Yeah, okay, same as the last time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, thank you for being present with us last time.
Okay. All right, moving right along here. Other business. Election of new chair for the Planning Commission.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, we did have one other activity planned. If the commission, I know all of our meetings tend to run later than we anticipate them to, but we also have scheduled the land use exercise for the downtown quadrant. The map is actually sitting on the table. Everyone in the room would be welcome to join that discussion. I would recommend that if we have 20 minutes maybe to lend towards that, we make it very free form and kind of, get some ideas on the table. We don't have to work through the entire book exhaustively. But maybe we take care of the election of the chairperson first, and then we can commence with that activity.
Okay.
So we can come back to the land use exercise and maybe take on the election first. And of course, you're the acting chair this evening.
Right.
We had Jocelyn Ritchie, who resigned from the Planning Commission, leaving the vacancy of chair. And Mr. Polite is vice chair. So I think we wanted to reserve that discussion until Mr. Polite was here. Now that he is here, our task before us is to appoint a chair, and if necessary, a vice chair.
When do the stuff from City Council last night take effect?
So last night, City Council nominated a total of 5 different appointments, or I reviewed 5 different appointments to the Planning Commission, and this is just for review of others who weren't there. Mr. Boehm were proposed to move into a full position with the Planning Commission. These are recommendations from the Mayor's office. Mr. Hackett nominated to renew a 4-year term. And then there are 3 other nominations. Kelsey Gaughan-Irvin, who's a consultant for local government through a nonprofit. Amos Stoltzfus, who is the director of the SOE organization in the Southwest. And Heidi Shirk, who's with us tonight, who would be filling the Region 1 position that includes the downtown and kind of north through the city. So those appointments don't take effect until next Tuesday evening when council finalizes those nominations. I confirmed that with the city clerk this morning.
I can't vote or make motions, but I think moving Mr. Polite to chairman would be a wise and easy move if somebody else would make that motion. Yes, I stopped voting whenever Ms. Ortega-Brown arrived.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to make Nelson Polite the chairman of our Planning Commission.
And I second that.
Do I say that?
Mr. Polite, would you be willing to graciously accept that nomination?
Yeah, humbly and graciously accept the chair of the Planning Commission. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Well, then we should take a vote to formalize that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Yep, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that leaves the vice chair position to be determined.
I guess I'll just keep talking because I can just keep talking. I'm of 2 thoughts here, and I think you guys can fight for what you guys want to do. I think Mr. Hackett has been here the longest, or one of the longest. So that might make it a good thing, but I also like gender diversity in these positions. So if one of the females here would like to step up, I think that's also appropriate. Thoughts from everybody else?
I can just keep talking too. I'm going to say that I enjoyed our sit-in chair last commission.
Nicole, I was also going to say the same thing. I think you do bring a good grounding to the commission as well and would be an excellent vice chair. I know.
And while Mr. Polite is very aware of the duties of chairman, because he's been with the Planning Commission the longest other than Steve, I just want to review, the chairman signs all of the plans that are voted on here when conditions of approval are met. The chairman also generally signs our developers agreements as well. And I think, is there one other document that they sign? RACL, certifications of blight for properties. And if the chairman, of course, conducts some meetings, but if the chairman or chairwoman is not present, then it would be the duty of the vice chair to take on all of those duties. And typically, the reorganization meeting is in February, according to our bylaws. So I think the appointments that you make tonight would be lasting until February of 2023, and then we'd have to revisit this and reconfirm or change if needed.
What am I fighting over? Sure, I'd love to.
Oh.
I'll be your partner in crime.
So,
Partner in law, right?
so I guess we'll formally vote on that.
I think we need a motion for that first. It'd be kind of weird for Ms. Seifert to vote, nominate herself in the motion.
We have a second.
Did you make the motion?
I
No,
can't.
nobody has? Okay, I'll make a motion that Nicole be the vice chair.
And I will second that.
So Nicole, Ms. Seifert will be the vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried.
Can I name myself?
Partner in crime. Good. That's great.
Congratulations, both. So we're not concluding the Planning Commission meeting, but for the purposes of streaming, I think we'll end the streaming, because from here, we're going to transition down to this table where unfortunately we don't have great audio capabilities. So the meeting is still being conducted in accordance with state law here under the Sunshine Act and in a public building.